Okay guys, so this is lesson 83. This is my third one for today, so hopefully my voice doesn't crack on you guys. I'm sorry. Alright, so on the board I have PS 83 with the geometry as 10, 13B, 19, 20, and 30. Let me write the word geo here so you know what this refers to. Okay, so geo, 10, 13B, 19, 20, and 30. Number 21, the rule for that is multiply by 2 and add 1. So that should get you guys started. So notice you are able to skip 5 problems, okay? Which normally I would mean that you could only miss 7 to get 100, but I'm still going to allow you to miss the 9 and go ahead and in order to get the 100. So please be careful and cautious as you're doing these problems, okay? All right, so let's go over a couple of concepts. When we see 10 to the third, we know that the 10 is going to be your base and the 3 is your exponent. So there's a little bit of a shine. Let me see if I can get rid of that there. Okay, so 10 to the third equals 10 times 10 times 10, okay? Can't get rid of that glare, so hopefully you guys can see it. Over here we have 10 to the fourth equals 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. So in other words, when you have an exponent with a base, you can simply look at the base, which is 3, and you're going to write it as 3 sets of 10. Here the base is 10, the exponent is 4, so you're going to write 4 sets of 10. Now, if I asked you to multiply these together, 10 to the third times 10 to the fourth, okay, that's going to mean that I can add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't have to multiply 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 a lot of times. I know that instead I can just count my zeros and then put 1 and the number of zeros. So in this case it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, comma and comma, okay? So what that means, guys, that brings us to our rule. When the bases are the same, we are able to add 3 and 4 together. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would make this 10 to the 7th power. So we see that 10 to the third times 10 to the fourth equals 10 to the 7th. That is for addition. We know that when we're multiplying, you don't add the exponents. You would actually subtract them, because when you divide, you take zeros away, you don't add them. Okay, so how that plays into our lesson for today. Okay, so here we go. I have on the board example 1, which reads 1.2 times 10 to the 5th, and then 3 times 10 to the 7th. Okay, so what you're going to do is first multiply the 1.2 and the 3. So you're going to rewrite it. Okay, 1.2 times 3. And then you're going to rewrite the 10 to the 5th times, and I'm going to use an X. You can use a dot. You can use whatever you want. Okay, so there we go. I have rewritten it by writing the numbers, okay, times each other. Then I have written the exponents times each other. Now I'm going to multiply here. 12 times 3 is 36. There's one decimal place, so put a 3.6, okay? Remembering my rule up here, because the bases are the same, that means I can leave the 10 and add the 5 and 7, and I'm going to get 12. So my answer is 3.6 times 10 to the 12. The last thing I have to do is to check my number to be sure that I have the proper scientific format. Remember, that means that there can only be one whole number and then the decimal. If it is not in proper format, you have to put it in proper format, and we'll talk about that on a different example. All right, let me do another example for you. Okay, the next one is example number 2, and it reads 4 times 10 to the 6th and then it has 3 times 10 to the 5th. Okay, so again, I'm going to write this as 4 times 3. And then I'm going to write this as 10 times 6 times 10 to the 5th. I'm going to multiply 4 times 12, and I'm going to get 48. And then I'm going to say times 10 to the, add those and you get 11. Now I notice that 48 does not have a decimal, and remember you can only have one decimal before the whole number. So you insert it at the end and you move it one time, and because it was a number greater than 1, that means you're going to add times 10 to the 1 power to it. If you were going from the opposite direction, you would subtract a power, okay? And then you rewrite it as 4.8 times 10 to the 12th. Please be sure to check your number once you multiply. If it comes out to a number that does not have a decimal, or the decimal is not in the proper place, you have to take one more step. The answer is 4.8 times 10 to the 12th. Okay, let's do a couple of other examples. All right, example number 3 says 2 times 10 to the negative 5th times 3 times 10 to the negative 7th. There we go. Okay, so again, 2 times 3, 10 to the negative 5th times 10 to the negative 7th. Okay, let me make sure I read those right. Okay, good. Multiply the numbers and you get 6 times 10. To add these together, so negative 5 plus negative 7, and that's a little bit confusing, so I'm not going to put the plus sign there. I'm just going to remember when the signs are the same, I add. When they're not the same, I subtract. So minus 5 minus 7 gives me minus 12. Now I look at my whole number, and I notice there's not a decimal, so I'm going to insert a decimal right here. Now does it have a decimal? It does. So I have 6.0 times 10 to the negative 12. So I'm not going to move it there because it would be before the whole number, so don't do that. And you actually don't need the 0. I just put that there to show you that even though it looks like it doesn't have a decimal, it really does. So this is written as 6 times 10 to the negative 12. If you want to write it as 6.0 times 10 to the negative 12, that's okay too. It's really up to you how you write it, okay? All right, on the last question, we have 5 times 10 to the 3rd. So this is example 4. 5 times 10 to the 3rd, okay? And 7 times 10 to the negative 8. Okay, so I'm going to multiply 5 times 7. I'm going to get 35. And then 10 to the 3rd times 10 to the negative 8. 3 minus 8, they're opposite numbers, so it's going to be times 10 to the negative 5th. That does not have a decimal, so I'm going to put it at the end. I'm going to move it once. I'm going to put it here, 10 to the positive 1, because that number was bigger than 1. I'm going to rewrite it, and it's going to have 3.5 times minus 5 plus 1 are opposite numbers, so times 10 to the negative 4 is my answer. I hope this was an easy enough lesson for you guys. This is going to be scientific notation with larger numbers, and if you have questions, as always, let me know.